Hello, everybody. Last time we talked about principles of life, the things that all living things on earth share. We share those things because we have a common ancestor that we inherited those characteristics from. Then we talked about life in general, the types of life, the six kingdoms, that there's six kingdoms of life out there, and scientists are able to categorize it and what we call classify it. We're humans. We like to classify things and organize it, and that's what we do to keep track of all this life on Earth. First of all, remember the different properties of life. These might be worded a little bit differently than the notes we had the other day, but they generally mean the same thing. All living things are composed of cells, the basic unit of life. We all display continuity by reproducing to keep the species going and passing our DNA on with our great adaptations to our offspring. We grow and develop. We utilize energy. We have to take in food or make food, depending on if we're a producer or a consumer. All living things evolve, adapt to their environment, respond to their environment. They must maintain homeostasis, an internal balance and regulation of their internal components. And all living things display ecology, meaning they can't live on Earth alone. They rely on other organisms, and other organisms may rely on them as well. So why do we classify all this life out there? Well, we humans with our big brains, remember, we like to make sense of the world that we live in. And so we organize life to understand many things, such as evolutionary relationships, and even to understand ourselves. If we understand other organisms, we can much more readily understand ourselves. And who knows, we might make some important discoveries. And of course, there's other ecological and conservation issues that we have to remember that humans are animals, and so we're subject to all that is out there, like other organisms. We're affected by what happens if something were to disappear or if environment would start to change. So all of that becomes important to us as well. So here's some facts for you. According to this website, there's about 15,000 species discovered each year. That's a lot. So that's a lot to keep track of if we're always adding that many more species all the time. There's currently about 7.77 million more species of animals, 298,000 more species of plants, 611,000 is fungi, and 6,400 more species of protists, or what we call protozoa. And researchers use data on past discoveries, including classification, to make these predictions. So we've got a ways to go. There's more organisms out there to discover. Like, here's some cool ones that were discovered since the 90s at least, like this small frog. So cute, it's actually sitting on someone's finger. This small monkey, it's only like 10 centimeters big, found in Brazil. Think about the vast ocean and all the life that lives in the ocean that we have yet to discover, like this axelrod fish found by New Guinea. Even there's probably some larger mammals out there yet to discover, like this saola found by Laos in Vietnam in 1992. Some of those places are so covered in jungle that humans just don't regularly go there, and so there's some species yet undiscovered. Another species of piranha, like we needed that, right? Or how about a little more recent, 2006, another species of bird, a type of babbler from India. Or I love this name, the smoky honey eater from New Guinea, found on the island of New Guinea in Indonesia. And the golden mantled tree kangaroo, I love that one. This little frog here is just so tiny, would have been under a leaf cover. This little guy evaded individuals who first saw it, and they had to re-find it again in 2008. That was reported. There's some data for you. We currently know of over 4,000 mammals, but when you think of all the other types of life, I mean, look at it. Who's really ruling the world here? Look at insects. That's pretty low. It says 751,000, but I know that that's probably closer to 900,000 now. Mammals don't really rule the world, I guess. New insects. Another type of monkey called the zogzag in Brazil. Where am I going to find new species? Well, sorry, but the United States is probably not what we call the hot spot in order to find new species. You're going to have to go to places like the rainforests and jungles where there's not a lot of people. And then maybe you'll have some luck, like Laos, Vietnam, Madagascar, and in places in Brazil, Ecuador, and so on and so forth. We'll go on an expedition to find new species. According to Scientific American magazine, that's a good science magazine, we've cataloged about 1.5 million species. Estimates range, though, up to 100 million total, so we've got a ways to go there. And others estimate that 99% of all species ever alive on Earth are actually extinct. And we haven't found all their fossils yet. And who knows, maybe Yeti and Bigfoot are out there and we haven't found them yet either. Watch the SciShow episode and find out. So classifying organisms began a long time ago. This is Aristotle, who tried to classify organisms first. He did it pretty simply. Basically, there's plants and there's animals, or organisms that have blood and those that don't. Not too bad, I suppose, for 2,000 years ago. He would be called one of the first taxonomists. A taxonomist is someone who classifies. Taxonomy is the science of classifying. But maybe someone who should get some better credit for classifying is Carolus Linnaeus, a Swedish physician and botanist. His real name was actually Carl von Linné, but he got so into this classifying of things, specifically plants, he changed his name to make it sound more sciencey in the 1700s to Carolus Linnaeus. Sounds like a real good scientific name there, right? Well, a scientific name is actually your genus and species. For instance, human scientific name is Homo sapiens. Our genus is Homo and species is sapien. Carl von Linné, or Carolus Linnaeus, actually published quite a lot of books and really led the forefront in botany, or the study of plants and classifying plants as well. And we still use his idea of scientific names to this day. We also call it binomial nomenclature. Bi means two. So we give every living thing on Earth two names, a genus and a species. That way, no matter what scientists in whatever country I'm talking to, I know exactly what species we're discussing, such as a Homo sapien. I know exactly what we're discussing. Or a Canis lupus. I know we're discussing the gray wolf if we use that scientific name. When you write a scientific name, always capitalize the genus, lowercase the species. If you're typing it, you're supposed to do it in italic as well. So, Carolus Linnaeus then helped us with binomial nomenclature by giving all organisms then a genus and a species, or a scientific name. But that's just the bottom of the levels of classification. There's actually more broad levels. Genus and species is the most specific, but there's more broad levels, starting with domain. That's actually a newer level of classification. Since I've been teaching, I've had to pick up knowledge of what a domain actually is. And there's only 3 of them. So what we're saying here is that all life on Earth can fit into just 3 big, huge categories, or domains. Then we have kingdom, and there's 6 of those. There used to be 5 when I went to school, but now there's 6. Then there's many phylums under that. and then class, order, family, genus, and species. So I try to come up with a way to remember this. So I use a sentence like, did King Philip come over for good spaghetti? It's just one that I've used over the years. You can come up with your own so that you can remember the order of these things. So what do you think? Is this a cougar, a mountain lion, a panther, or a puma? Well, it all depends on what part of the United States or world you're from. That's one of the problems with what we call common names. Those are all common names, and different places use different common names. So by having a scientific name, then we can all agree on what this animal should actually be called. By the way, I say mountain lion or cougar. So common names basically can be confusing depending on what region you're from. So this is where classification comes in handy. I know my dad always called these civet cats, but really they're spotted skunks. But farmers used to call them civet cats around here. This is actually what a civet cat is. So having, again, a genus and a species or scientific name can help us. Oh, there's another civet cat. Oh, and another one. Good thing we have a genus and species to tell us apart. All right, the five kingdom system when I went to school. There it is. Should look familiar. Animals, plants, fungi. Most of us know about those three. Protists maybe a little less familiar. And then when I went to school, bacteria were all categorized into one kingdom called Monera. But today we've separated those two into just plain old bacteria, or sometimes they call it eubacteria, and then archaebacteria. They've discovered that those types of bacteria are different enough that they should have their own kingdoms. So now we have 6 kingdoms. So there they are. So 5 and 6 bacteria and archaebacteria. And we generally don't call them Monera anymore. But if you hear that word now, you'll know that it refers to bacteria. And there they are. And if you want to call them a more sciencey name, it's actually Plantae, Animalia, Protista, Eubacteria, and those are the real names. If you take a look, this could be viewed as a phylogenetic or evolutionary tree. You can see that plants, animals, fungi, and Protista are all more closely related to these archaebacteria than they are eubacteria, because their branch, archaebacteria branch, is closer to ours than the regular bacteria. Now, all types of bacteria, whether you're an archaebacteria or regular bacteria, they all have in common that they have a prokaryotic cell. And basically it means before the nucleus, or no nucleus. So that means no nucleus in their cells. They're really teeny tiny. So their DNA just floats around in the cytoplasm there. Not that they're any worse or anything, that their cell is bad. They've existed for billions of years, so they're doing something right, obviously, but just a totally different type of cell than the type of cell that we have. And then a eukaryotic cell would be the kind that we have. This means we have a nucleus and we have other organelles, short for kind of like little organ, other organelles in here that have membranes to separate them. And our cells are pretty big. So if a eukaryotic cell was a size of a watermelon, a prokaryotic cell would be like a watermelon seed. That would be like a size difference. A prokaryotic cell can fit into a eukaryotic cell. So we've got, looks like a plant and an animal cell there with the different components. And you can bet in our next chapters we're going to be studying these cells much more closely and the different components in there and how they work and what they do. All right, this is a protist. What kind of cell? It's eukaryote. And a bacteria, again, is a prokaryote. All right, now go up to domains, that top new level. There's only 3 domains, I told you that. How is this even fair? Not only do bacteria and archaebacteria get their own kingdom, they also get their own domain. Yeah, I mean, how fair is that? Now, eukaryotes, we have to share that. We're eukaryotes, so we belong in the domain eukarya. Means that we all have a nucleus with complex organelles in our cells. So animals, fungi, and plants and protists, which is most of what these are here, we all have eukaryotic cells, so we belong to the domain eukarya. So there are our 3 domains with the kingdoms listed there, basically animals, fungi, plants, and protists there. They've given them some different names though. The archaea, yeah, I'm not familiar with a lot of these. But look at their branch on their evolutionary tree. We're much more related to the archaeans than we are to regular bacteria over here. So there's some maybe better pictures for you. So there's our 6 kingdoms: bacteria, archaebacteria, protists, plants, fungi, and animals. And then above the level kingdom are the domains. So again, bacteria get their own domain. Archaea gets their own domain. But protists, plants, fungi, and animals all must share the domain of eukarya because of our cell. So basically, scientists have categorized all life, this is amazing, by just the type of cells that we have. The prokaryote type of cell and the eukaryote type of cell. And that will determine what domain you are in. Archaeans tend to live in pretty extreme environments and tend to be like weird old bacteria. That's why they're called archaean. It's kind of like for archaic, basically. There's our tree of life again. Oops, didn't I see these already? Oh, here's my favorite, Axononyx jubatus. I love that scientific name. It's for a cheetah. Remember, genus is capitalized, species is lowercase. And it's actually written in italics. Look at, the adaptations of Axononyx jubatus. I love it. The ability to run so fast. It's camouflage coloration. These black stripes that help reduce glare. Its bone structure. Its rudder-like tail. Such an amazing animal. What about these animals, ligers, or tigons? Well, these are called hybrids. This is when you have 2 species get together. They're different species, and they're actually able to reproduce. They're able to reproduce still because their common ancestor was not that long ago. So they're still similar enough to be able to have babies, but their babies are sterile. So they're kind of like a dead end. And we already know that that's not good because you got to keep your species going. You got to be able to reproduce. So they are called a hybrid species. And they don't reproduce. So to be in the same species as someone, it means you're able to get together and reproduce, and your DNA and chromosomes are similar enough that you create fertile offspring who can have babies of their own and keep continuing the species. And they're also viable. It means your babies are strong and they're healthy and able to survive. There's some that get together when they're different species and they have babies that just die very soon after. So a population is also the same species in an area, and you're able to reproduce with one another and share your genes. It's kind of like a big gene pool that everybody's sharing. And remember, it's the population level that evolves, not the individual level. All right, I'm going to go through a few of these slides. Okay, so the language of scientific names can be kind of confusing. They're usually written in Latin and Greek. That's because Latin is an old, dead language. It doesn't change much. There's no like real slang or anything. And so they use that language for scientific names, and it's the same across all countries of the world, written in Latin. So I would see Homo sapien or Axononyx jubatus written the same way no matter what country I'm in. So that's important. All right, there's a classification of the Canis lupus. They're in the kingdom Animalia, phylum Chordata, class Mammalia, order Carnivora. I think I'm in that order, aren't I? No, probably not. Family Canidae, and then genus and species Canis lupus. So notice how your kingdoms are very large in general. Then your phylums become much more exclusive, and then more exclusive yet until you get to the species. That's as specific as you can get, because you are individuals who, again, can come together and breed with each other and create viable, fertile offspring, because your DNA and chromosomes are so similar. So that's important. So taxonomy is an attempt to bring order and unity to our great diversity of life. I love that. So here's humans. Remember how we are? We're animals. We belong in a phylum called Chordata. That just means that we have a backbone with the spinal cord running through it. And then we're mammals. We have warm blood and nourish our young with milk by breastfeeding. And we have mammary glands. We have certain types of teeth. That's all important. And then the order primates that we share with other primates, monkeys, orangutans, gibbons, chimpanzees. Our family is hominid, also sometimes called hominidae or hominin. That just means we are upright walking primates, and our vision usually is stereoscopic, facing forward with a flat face. I love it. And then genus Homo, and then sapiens. So there's our human classification. So classification helps us understand organisms, and it really lets us take a look at them, their structural and physiological connections, their phylogenetic connections. It helps us understand our evolution as well, which is great. Darwin noted that the Linnaean system, Carolus Linnaeus, often grouped organisms in a way that actually reflects evolution, common ancestry. All right, if you're interested, you can check out the slides that will go a little bit more deeper into these different organisms. I'm not going to play them there, but you can check out the slides if you like. And then what about viruses? We've all heard about the coronavirus. I mean, is that thing living? Sometimes when we talk about viruses like attacking us, it sounds like they're living, but they're actually not. Basically, a virus is some genetic material, either in the form of DNA or another type of material called RNA, that's enclosed by like a protein coat that also has a lipid barrier to it. And so, although they have genetic material and they evolve, so they do fit some of those characteristics of life, they don't fit them all. They don't utilize energy. They don't adapt to their surroundings or respond, and they can't reproduce on their own. They have to get into a host cell or inject their DNA into a host cell in order to reproduce. All right, so remember life's properties. Viruses don't fit that, but just because they're not alive doesn't mean they don't have a big, huge impact on us. All right, so let me know if you have any questions on this classification stuff. Practice your levels of classification: domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species, and see if you can say it as fast as I can. And I'm going to try to end this show here.